So it's a very interesting discussion about these technologies. Are there other areas of climate change mitigation that the Philippines and Denmark and maybe even Europe can work together on? What are some of those areas that are possible?
I definitely think there's a lot to do, and there's also emerging cooperation in these areas. I'll give a couple of examples of that. But the climate issue is one that's very important to Denmark, but it's also very important for the Philippines, because you are suffering the consequences, and one of the countries that are most vulnerable to climate change. So I think, you know, it's important to look at what can we do back in our own country, but how can we also help the Philippines be part of the solution and help mitigate the threats that it is facing itself. So right now we have about 30 people from Quezon City in Copenhagen to talk to the municipality of Copenhagen. Both cities are part of what you call the C40 group, some of the largest cities in the world working together to become climate neutral. Copenhagen has pledged to become the first climate neutral capital in the world. Hopefully going to happen in a couple of years' time. That's the plan, at least. Quezon City wants to learn from that. And there are a lot of issues that go into that. So one of them is like food waste.
Food waste, okay.
People don't think about food waste as a climate issue, but there is actually a huge climate footprint to food waste.
Wow.
And in Denmark, to my own surprise, I have to say, you know, we have reduced through targeted measures food waste with almost 30%. That's a lot. And
30%?
In only a few years. Only a few years. And that has a huge benefit on the climate footprint that you have. So, you know, trying to inspire and help people look at how can this be done. We are having this, or Copenhagen has this very high ambition, also because it's been possible to neutralize its CO2 emissions in its power system. This is also due to our sector coupling, where we combine power and energy, so we get a higher degree of efficiency and lower prices. For something like central cooling and electricity, you combine those two, you can save a lot of money, it's more efficient. So I think those kind of solutions can help inspire decision makers in the Philippines also to find solutions that are applicable to your country and to this place. There's also an opportunity when it comes to things like waste to energy.
Okay.
Where you can use waste. Today, you know, waste goes into landfills.
Okay.
But it can be used much more productively and also reduce CO2 through incineration. So you convert that to power, which would be, you know, a better solution.
Yeah.
Wastewater treatment. We can also showcase in Denmark how we actually harvest energy from wastewater, so it's a surplus. It's quite amazing. We have two such plants in Denmark, yes. Most countries, you know, it's very expensive to treat wastewater, but in Denmark we now have 2 wastewater plants that are making a profit, and they don't call themselves, you know, wastewater plants or sewage facilities. They're now resource harvesting companies. It's very interesting. So, you know, that kind of inspiration can be very important and I think helpful, and we need to exchange good ideas.
Yeah.
There are lots of great ideas out there around the world, and just making decision makers aware this is possible.
Yeah.
This is viable. You know?
Yes.
You can actually do this.
Right.
I think it's very, very important.
So are there going to be high-level meetings? Are there going to be conferences? What's in the calendar?
Well, there'll be a very big conference here very soon, where the Philippines has agreed to host a ASEAN Plus conference for the IMO. So, you know, the IMO countries in this region.
The International Maritime Organization.
Yeah, where thank you for that. The International Maritime Organization on green shipping.
Okay.
And that will be both green shipping internationally, but also coastal shipping.
That's very interesting.
And
people talking about electric cars and Denmark's talking about electric ships.
Yes, yes, and you delivered one from one of your wharfs here. You delivered.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, one of the largest electrical powered ferries.
Wow.
Was delivered to Denmark not long ago.
Wow.
Not long ago.
Wow.
From the Philippines. From the Philippines. So
not many people know that we have that capability.
The Philippines can too. I have a great belief in the Philippines. So there will be this large conference here. There will be maybe 150 people discussing solutions and options, and we're very happy Denmark and the Philippines partnering on this.
Right.
And we hope to carry this discussion further from the Philippines and Denmark into the IMO.
I see.
Because we really need international cooperation here. The shipping industry is a substantial part of CO2 emissions globally, and reducing that needs to be part of a global way of reducing our CO2 level. International shipping first, but coastal shipping can also do a lot.
Sure. We were talking about the seafarers earlier. Yeah. Would this require a new discipline or a new area of study for those wanting to be workers in the maritime industry? And does it take a lot of investments? I mean, a lot of equipment to teach these things? What's your experience in Denmark?
I don't think it takes a lot of new equipment, but it does take developing new curricula to accommodate this. So when a battery-powered vehicle will operate differently. Yes. It will have different kind of security issues. Sure. It will need to store energy in a different way. Yeah. There are issues there, or rather, I mean issues, but there are different modes of operation. And seafarers have to, understand those differences and accommodate new technologies. And that's when I talked before. There are also opportunities now in this discussion you've had on the certification in developing the curriculum for the future. And I definitely encourage, and I know it's a part of the ongoing discussion, move in that direction, because the industry will move in that direction.
Right. Is there a discussion between your embassy and our Commission on Higher Education on maybe to see what's best practices around there in terms of maritime education?
We've had that discussion with Marina.
Okay.
And the ones who are leading from the Danish side are really our shipping companies.
I see.
So the shipping companies are, and we are helping them with that, but they have the expertise. The embassy doesn't have a lot of expertise, but the shipping companies have. They are very interested in assisting and supporting the Philippines in developing their seafarers for the future, because Denmark expects we will be at the forefront of the reshaping of the kind of fuels and systems that are used in international shipping.
Now, can I go back to what you said a while ago about food waste and how maybe there's a better way of disposing it than you guys do it in a way that you actually harness the energy from burning it. In the Philippines, there was some resistance to. There was even a law. I think it was called the Clean Air Act. Yeah. That prohibited the use of incinerators, but incinerator technology has progressed since then. And I assume that the ones that are used in Europe now are not the ones that we see in the past that emit these harmful gases, but are
can
you talk about that?
Yeah, it's really about having high enough temperatures.
Okay.
So the management of how you incinerate is very important. Okay. That technology has evolved a lot.
Right.
So you have very safe forms of waste to energy, and it is a good way of producing energy. But for the Philippines, also very important because you have a real waste problem.
Right.
And the landfills are a disaster waiting to happen. It pains my heart.
Right.
When you're out there in the countryside. I was in Negros Occidental here the other day, and you're driving out there in the countryside, and then suddenly you see this hole in the ground, and you're just thinking that's happening in a lot of places, and it's poison. It's going to poison your earth. It's going to poison your water. It's not good.
Yeah. Well, I'm just wondering if this is a case for the Philippines where a well-intended law was meant to protect the environment, except that there are rapid developments in technology that maybe it should now consider and maybe revisit those laws?
I think that should definitely be revisited. And I know Quezon City, this is one thing they're going to look at. Quezon City is interested in looking at waste to energy.
Does Denmark have technology that we can look at? Or?
Yes, we do. We were the first to do waste to energy in a large scale.
Okay.
We do it less now because we have transcended from that.
Okay.
But I think where the Philippines is right now, you could, win a lot by doing waste to energy. And it's Filipino resources. You are substituting imported energy with Filipino energy. Way to go.
And the other thing you talked about was wastewater. And I noticed in the U.S. that this has become sort of an ancillary business for the sewage companies. I mean, there's a link between that and agriculture. Yeah. And I remember seeing some reports of how they were actually trying to market some of those treated waste to farming to farming communities. Is there such a thing in Denmark as well that is working, or were you thinking of something else when you talk about making?
Well, in Denmark, the wastewater treatment plants are typically independent government-owned entities.
I see.
So we don't have
private sector. Yeah.
Private sector. So these are like semi-government run enterprises, and it's worked well for us, this model. And what these plants, these highly advanced plants, are doing is that they're treating the water as they should, and then they are taking out the nutrients from the wastewater and processing that into fertilizer and other things, which then they sell off. And the processes they are using also allow them to do bio gases, which they then can use to harvest the energy that is in surplus of what the plant itself uses. And that's also then a surplus for the wastewater plant.
So a number of different uses. We're ending on an unusual note here, but we'll be right back with Ambassador Mellbin. This is Business and Politics. Please stay tuned.